To suppose that slavery, the accursed thing, could be abolished peacefully and laid aside innocently after having plundered cradles, separated husbands and wives, parents and children, and after having starved to death, worked to death, whipped to death, run to death, burned to death, lied to death, kicked and cuffed to death, and grieved to death, a whole nation of people would be the greatest ignorance under the sun.
I was born in Virginia in 1832, near Charlottesville, in the beautiful valley of the Rivanna River. My father was a white man and my mother a negress, the slave of one John Martin. I was a mere child, probably not more than 6 years of age as I remember, when my mother, 2 brothers, and myself were sold to Dr. Lewis, a practicing physician in the village of Scottsville. We remained with him about 5 years when he died, and in the settlement of his estate I was sold to one Washington Fitzpatrick, a merchant of the village. He kept me a short time when he took me to Richmond by way of canal boat, expecting to sell me. But as the market was dull, he brought me back and kept me some 3 months longer, when he told me he had hired me out to work on a canal boat running to Richmond, and to go to my mother and get my clothes ready to start on the trip. I went to her as directed, and when she had made ready my bundle, she bade me good-bye with tears in her eyes, saying, "My son, be a good boy, be polite to everyone, and always behave yourself properly." It was sad to her to part with me, though she did not know that she was never to see me again, for my master had said nothing to her regarding his purpose, and she only thought, as I did, that I was hired to work on the canal boat, and that she should see me occasionally. But alas, we never met again. I can see her form still as when she bade me good-bye. That parting I can never forget. I ran off from her as quickly as I could after her parting words, for I did not want her to see me crying.
My mother was the slave of a tobacco planter, who died when I was about 4 years old. My mother had several children, and they were sold upon master's death to separate purchasers. She was sold, my father told me, to a Georgia trader. I, of all her children, was the only one left in Maryland. When sold, I was naked, never having had on clothes in my life. But my new master gave me a child's frock, belonging to one of his own children. After he had purchased me, he dressed me in this garment, took me before him on his horse, and started home. But my poor mother, when she saw me leaving her for the last time, ran after me, took me down from the horse, clasped me in her arms, and wept loudly and bitterly over me. My master seemed to pity her, and endeavored to soothe her distress by telling her that he would be a good master to me, and that I should not want anything. She then, still holding me in her arms, walked along the road beside the horse as he moved slowly, and earnestly and imploringly besought my master to buy her and the rest of her children, and not permit them to be carried away by the Negro buyers. But whilst thus entreating him to save her and her family, the slave driver, who had bought her, came running in pursuit of her with a raw hide in his hand. When he overtook us, he told her he was her master now, and ordered her to give that little Negro to its owner and come back with him. My mother then turned to him and cried, "Oh, master, do not take me from my child." Without making any reply, he gave her 2 or 3 heavy blows on the shoulders with his raw hide, snatched me from her arms, handed me to my master, and seizing her by one arm, dragged her back towards the place of sale. My master then quickened the pace of his horse, and as we advanced, the cries of my poor parent became more and more indistinct, At length, they died away in the distance, and I never again heard the voice of my poor mother. Young as I was, the horrors of that day sank deeply into my heart, and even at this time, though half a century has elapsed, the terrors of the scene return with painful vividness upon my memory. Frightened at the sight of the cruelties inflicted upon my poor mother, I forgot my own sorrows at parting from her and clung with my new master, as an angel and a savior when compared with the hardened fiend into whose power she had fallen. She had been a kind and good mother to me, had warmed me in her bosom in the cold nights of winter, and had often divided the scanty pittance of food allowed her by her mistress between my brothers, sisters, and me, and gone supperless to bed herself. Whatever victuals she could obtain beyond the course of food, saltfish and cornbread, allowed to slaves on the Patuxent and Potomac rivers, she carefully distributed among her children, and treated us with all the tenderness which her own miserable condition would permit. I have no doubt that she was chained and driven to Carolina, and toiled out the residue of a forlorn and famished existence in the rice swamps or indigo fields of the South.